Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Does your warehouse waste time and money managing forklift batteries? Enersys can energize your operations with a customized solution, delivering the power you need while minimizing ownership costs. Enersys starts by analyzing your operations and then selecting from their comprehensive range of battery and charger technologies, develops a truly optimized system tailored to your needs. Enersys gives you the power to increase productivity and profitability. See how Enersys puts power in motion for you at enersys.com. Businesses are retooling fulfillment operations, from warehouses to omnichannel, to meet new demand amid unprecedented labor shortages. 3PLs, retailers, B2B distributors, and others are turning to flexible fulfillment solutions like 6 River Systems to adapt and scale. 6 River Systems Fulfillment Execution System is an integrated solution that combines intelligent, cloud-based software and automation, including its autonomous mobile robot, AMR, Chuck. No costly or disruptive infrastructure changes, fast and easy associate training, and integrations with other warehouse execution solutions allow operations to meet labor challenges, increase efficiency, and enhance customer engagement. Go to www.6river.com to learn more. Go to www.6river.com to learn more.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. Today's episode, I am going to be joined by Nicolas De Keijser, who is the Director of Sales at Boston Dynamics. And you may be familiar with Boston Dynamics because they have great viral videos with robots that dance and do all different kinds of things. And maybe most famously for their Spot robot, which is the robotic dog. So very interesting stuff, but they're also doing a lot of great things and practical applications of robots. They don't just make robots for videos. So we're going to hear about those different applications from Nicolas, and he's going to tell us a little bit about their new robot in the logistics space, which is called Stretch. So Nicolas, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Definitely happy to have you on. We haven't had Boston Dynamics on the podcast before, so I'm very interested to talk to you and dig a little deeper and learn some more. So for those that maybe are not familiar with Boston Dynamics and haven't seen some of the interesting things that you guys have done in the past and continue to do, why don't you give us a little overview of Boston Dynamics and what it is that you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Boston Dynamics, we've been in existence for almost 30 years, and I would say in the last 10 years, the company has really evolved in developing robots that now actually have commercial purpose or commercial abilities. I mean, we have products that serve the industry and are able to have applications that are fairly novel. And so that's probably something that we're trying to do as a company, is to try to bring robots and solve problems that maybe weren't solved with robots before. We have, we're known for 3 different products. Kevin, as you introduced us, probably our most well-known robot is Spot. And Spot is the robot dog that we utilize in several industries. You think about it as a mobile robot platform. So it can do a number of things. It can go anywhere a person goes. And then we use it typically for inspection applications, as well as creating digital twins and do some security work also. So these are the type of things that we can do with Spot. It really depends on what kind of payload or application you mount on Spot, and that will dictate what the robot can do. And now you have this mobile platform that can get you anywhere a human otherwise could go. Then we have Atlas, which is our humanoid robot, which is fairly well known too for some of its amazing abilities. We are able to explore what's possible with robotics. And a lot of the things we develop on Atlas by doing these really, really advanced type of motions then translate into our day-to-day robots. Finally, we also have Stretch, which we'll talk a lot more about, so I won't go too much in depth here, but Stretch is really a purpose-built robot and it's a purpose-built mobile robot, I should say, for the warehouse and logistics industry.
Yeah, very interesting. And obviously, I think, the Boston Dynamics name is kind of well known in not only in the robotic space and the logistics space now as well, but also on the general public side for, what you mentioned about the Atlas and Spot and just the viral ability of some of the videos that you guys have created. It's very interesting. So it was interesting. You mentioned something in there, a certain point where you've been around for 30 years, obviously, which is a long time. Definitely, if we think about 30 years ago, robots were not as prevalent, right? And we've been doing these interesting things like developing Atlas and Spot, which kind of, I guess, the general thinking kind of makes you think in a different way of what you really envision robots when it comes to like the movie side or what we've kind of like pictured in stories, right? As opposed to some things that are robotic that necessarily don't look like the Jetsons or whatever the case may be. So I'm curious, from the Boston Dynamics side, why was the approach to start out with building out these more kind of personal touch robots, in a sense that would get that type of reaction from the general public and be able to do these things that, like you mentioned, and they can go anywhere where a human can go, and you look at something like Atlas and you see the things that it's capable of doing. It's pretty amazing. So I'm curious, why was the direction to start out going with those types of things, which is now kind of led to these more, maybe some practical applications like the Stretch and things like that. So how did that kind of evolve, and what was, I guess, the initial thinking when Boston Dynamics was started?
I mean, early on, if you think about the starting days of Boston Dynamics, our founder, Mark Raybert, he also founded the Leg Lab at MIT back in the days. And so he did a lot of research on legged automation. So there was a lot of research, there was knowledge. But the idea behind it is, if you think about how animals move, what people can do, legs appears to be a very good way to move, and especially when you want to get into things that are less structured. If you have a very nice warehouse floor, everything is very structured, wheels are a tremendous method of moving. But as soon as you get in a construction site or even in factories where you have stairs and obstacles, legs can open up a lot of capabilities. So having a lot of knowledge, a lot of technical capabilities, and then also seeing the use of it really drove us to develop this further and further, because we had, of course, a strong belief that this would lead somewhere. Now, we don't only do legged robots, because if you think about the Stretch robot started on legs. Didn't really start on legs, but the first time we did something for warehousing, we used an Atlas robot and had it move boxes. That really a lot of people got really interested. So I think you have a good point. People see that, relate to it, think like this is what we need. But then as we started to understand the use cases better, it turned out that in this particular use case, the legs were not the most efficient way to do things. And so then we actually kind of learned from that, tried a number of things. We added wheels, first 2 wheels, and then we found out that actually having a stable platform for at least the application of moving boxes around, because that's really what we're doing, ends up being just a more efficient manner of doing it. So if you look at the application, you understand the problem, and then you kind of also take it from there. Obviously, legs and how to control legs, how to control balanced robots, dynamically balanced robots, is something that we have a lot of experience in, and we feel like we can bring that to our advantage where it makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting perspective, and you can see the evolution, and it's interesting that you said you're using Atlas at first to move these boxes, and I think that really caught the attention of a lot of people. I think I remember seeing the early videos there where it was doing some things in the warehousing, and I was thinking myself too, like, this is really interesting compared to some of the other stuff that have been coming out that was more focused on, I guess, collaborative robots in a sense, or in the picking side and things like that. So it was interesting to see this kind of transition a little bit, and now it's kind of led to what is the stretch robot, which is been commercialized, now available, right? And so I'm curious though, because the stretch robot, I think the big focus is on container and trailer unloading, right? So this is something that I think has been an interesting and maybe difficult use case for our industry to figure out how to automate and make more efficient. I know in my experience, I've worked in warehouses, managed warehouses where, we're doing, 6 to 8 containers a day, and they may be floor loaded, there's no pallets, and it's tough work for a human to do, right? And it's strenuous, it's monotonous in a sense, and there's a lot of risk for potential injury just from lifting, and the way that the containers are loaded and getting in proper positions and things of that nature. So automating it is certainly something that makes sense, but there's a lot of variability there. So I'm curious, why did Boston Dynamics decide that this is where we want to try and automate, and why did they go after that use case?
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, so going back to the initial Atlas video, where it was one of the ideas, like, well, what could we do with the arms and the hands of Atlas? And obviously a lot of people move boxes around. That's a fairly typical use case. So we felt like that could be something we can test. What can it lift? Where can it put things on a shelf? Can it be, how does all that work? Really more from a research standpoint, right? And then, you post this on YouTube, you get tremendous interest. People calling you, say, we would like to buy an Atlas. And then we kind of, understanding what's behind Atlas, what it would take for people to operate it. And, we kind of said, well, we understand that you have a need to move boxes, and that clearly it is not served, or at least you have a need for a mobile robot to do that. I mean, obviously, industrial robots have been around for a long time, and they're very good at what they do, but they like the mobility. And so as a company that is focused on making robots mobile in unique ways and very flexible ways, we thought, well, this is an interesting thing to research. We went about by putting wheels on Atlas. That's the first step. And then we understood that arms were not the most efficient way to pick boxes, so we added suction. So we kind of went incrementally. We started to do some use cases with a robot that also was on YouTube in 2019, called Handle, which looks a little bit like an ostrich. So without really trying, we stayed true to the animal teams, but yeah. That was not the goal. But because we added a counterweight, and it looked a little bit like a bird. And anyway, that turned out to be very interesting. We were able to move the robot really quickly around the warehouse, but it wasn't the most efficient in moving the boxes quickly from A to B. It would pick up the box, but that would take a while, and it would drop it, that would take a while, because it had to balance. But then when it had to go from A to B, it could do that really quickly. Well, it turns out that moving a robot on wheels quickly in a warehouse is not something that is recommended from a safety standpoint. However, picking up the box and dropping it quickly is something that people desire. So we then went on and said, like, clearly there's a lot of demand, because we had customers doing proof of concepts with us with this really futuristically looking robot that's called Stretch. No, it's Handle, sorry. So we started to really see this inbound of demand that was tremendous. And so we said there's got to be, and there's a huge opportunity. You start going around warehouses, you start realizing that literally no container in the world is unloaded with any sort of automation, nowhere. So you make that conclusion fairly rapidly. So you say, well, there's a really nice market there. There's other things in the warehouse where a mobile robot could be useful, like building orders alongside the aisle. So there's this typical market research approach.
Right.
So you take those two things and then you say, well, what do we do? Let's keep thinking about this. And that's where Stretch came about, where we said a stable base still allows us to go everywhere we need to go in a safe way. And now that we're stable, we can move the boxes really quickly and we can start containers. So we have the flexibility of going in and out with a small footprint. We have the flexibility going from one container to the other without requiring a lot of infrastructure, and we can also do the job. Now, there is one aspect that I haven't touched upon yet, and I would imagine you might ask about it also, but we've spent a lot of time learning and hike in all sorts of settings, all sorts of different boxes, adding to that flexibility and that capability. So you have a mobile and autonomous robot that can make at least decisions within the framework of moving boxes that are critical to make the application useful and productive. And so container unloading is really as you mentioned, where we start off. It is a great market, and it is also an application that we felt we had the tools to solve rather quickly so we could enter the market.
With e-commerce off the charts, many small and growing warehouses are asking, how can I get ahead when my warehouse is barely keeping up? The answer is future-ready warehouse tech from Zebra Technologies. Warehouses can simplify and upgrade all processes, from automated inventory management to hands-free picking, with Zebra's tailored, scalable mobile solutions. They're simple and intuitive. There's never been a better time to upgrade for success with Zebra. How can your warehouse get ahead? The answer's in black and white. Get the answers at zebra.com/theanswer. That's zebra.com/theanswer.
Very interesting, yeah, and I think it's much needed or was much needed now that you've developed the solution. But it's interesting because when we look at a warehouse or distribution center, we tend to say we want to look at our processes, and when we map out our processes and we develop our process flows, we always start from the inbound side. But it's interesting that to me that automation in a sense in the warehouse didn't really take that path, right? It didn't start on the inbound side. It kind of started in the middle and the picking side for the most part, and some pallet movement here and there. But it's interesting that it took kind of a long time to get a solution in that spot, and I think it's a great thing, and it was much needed for the industry. A lot of conversation around robotics is about making a worker's life easier and making the employees kind of work life less strenuous and easier to do without having to strain themselves. And I think attacking the container unloading side is a huge one in doing that. So it's definitely a great thing that you guys have done. And it's very interesting to see also how the industry is kind of taken to this, and like you said, even when it was just the Atlas that was in the video, people were calling saying they wanted an Atlas for the warehouse, right? So with that being said, I mean you talk about how customers are so interested, and I think kind of the biggest cosign of the Stretch in a sense so far has been that DHL is kind of invested into this, and also they're going to be utilizing the Stretch as well. Which I think is a big sign of something that's definitely an effective use case and an effective automation tool, as DHL has been heavily investing in robotics and automation in the past couple of years, and especially with their innovation centers as well. So talk to us a little bit about that partnership and how does that look from the perspective of kind of starting to implement these Stretch robots into DHL facilities?
So, first and foremost, I want to say, mentioning DHL, they've been a fantastic partner, fantastic customer to work with. They've been with us since the days that we tried out and did a proof of concept with the Handle robot, the two-wheeled ostrich-looking robot. So we did that with them and learned a lot along the way about their needs, about the problem they understood. They learned also like what it takes to solve that problem. And so we went on a journey together, which now resulted in this, really nice agreement that we concluded last December or January. And so the way it's looking forward, without being able to tell you too much in details at this point, but we are in the next 6 months, starting now, we are like in this process of making putting the robots into actual productive use with them. So there's a little bit of further testing and piloting that needs to happen to get to that point. But the plan is that in the next 6 months, those robots will start working every day and delivering to the output of container unloading for DHL at a first location. And from that point on, multiple robots in a location, and then the next location, and multiple locations throughout next years. That's our goal with them.
Very cool, and definitely I think it's great to know that these are going to be started to put in use in the next couple months, and we'll be able to see how they actually are working in these environments and being able to help unload these containers. And I'm sure it's going to lead to a lot of expansion for you guys into other companies and other facilities as well as this kind of catches on. I mean, I think I said it a couple of times already, but it's much needed automation, I think, to be able to really keep the flow of goods coming in the door and really creating a safer environment in that dock area for the workers and the people working in that dock area, to reduce the amount of strenuous labor that they're doing with those boxes and that unloading. So it's really interesting to hear about Stretch, and I think it's a great thing, and the way that to hear about the evolution of it and how it's kind of developed from some of the earlier things that Boston Dynamics has done is really incredible to hear. So I'm curious in the sense, as you guys have been developing these robotic applications, there's oftentimes the question of, in the warehousing world, are we eventually getting to a point where we're looking at the idea or the concept of a dark warehouse where, we don't necessarily have any employees in there, and it's just robots and automation that's doing the work. So from Boston Dynamics standpoint, how do they view the idea of a dark warehouse, and is that what you guys are working towards, or how do you feel about that?
No, I think we're looking to take to work on applications that are tough, that are strenuous for operators, that are in environments that are not that as desirable. If you go back to container unloading, it can be really hot. You mentioned it. It's ergonomically certainly not the best type of job. So we're focusing on that first, and then we see that the robots still will need what we call a handler at the end of the day. Robots will still need to be tasked to say, well, here's the container. You have multiple, stage them, prep them, plan them. Multiple robots needs to kind of be managed. So a number of these things we still see in the warehouse done by the operators, by the current people that work in the warehouse. So we see them as a power tool is probably the right way. Today, if you need to go and do some job at home, you're not going to use a screwdriver to put every nail into your wall or every screw into your wall. You'll use a power tool, and that's really kind of the way we see it, that Stretch could become a power tool for moving boxes in warehouses and augment and help people do their work more effectively, more productively, and therefore help everyone be successful as well, as much the operator as the company that employs the tools.
Yeah, very interesting, and I think I'm on the same page there as well in that thinking, and I love the analogy there in the sense of the robot becomes like a power tool, just like whether it's a where looks real, like you said, to screw in something or put something together. I think that's a great point. It just becomes the tool that you're utilizing. So really interesting to learn about Boston Dynamics and the stretch robot and how you guys have kind of evolved and progressed to this point of these great applications. And it's great to see that you're going after these tough use cases as well. I think that's a great sign for us in the warehousing industry and employees and making their lives better, which is a great mission to be on. So I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today, Nicolas. And if people are interested in learning more about Boston Dynamics and Stretch, how can they do that?
Yes, so they can reach out to an email that's on our webpage. It's warehousesales@bostondynamics.com. But you can find it if you go through our warehouse use cases or stretch pages on our website. You'll find the contact info. So you can definitely reach out. That's going to come to me or to someone in my team. We'll get the email and we'll be glad to engage and discuss the applications to see where we're at. I do want to mention that while we are commercially available, we also had we had a pretty good success of getting early adopters sign up. So we talked about DHL, but there's other customers that have been courageous to jump on board with us, and like Maersk or Gap or H&M. I mean, these things have been also publicized. So all these companies, again, great companies that invest a lot in automation, that foresee the future and how things will be done. We do have a lot of work throughout the next year to get all those kicked off to productive use. So it's not just DHL, it's them too. And so glad to get anyone to inquire, and just know that maybe there'll be a little bit of not a delay in answer, but maybe a bit of time for us to get through our initial customers. The good news is we'll have a lot of good experiences to share with them as we go through those world-class customers that probably are very representative for the industry.
All right, great. And we definitely will put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com so people can easily find it. And definitely looking forward to seeing how Stretch rolls out into the market and seeing some videos and things of it working in these different sites that you just mentioned. It'd be great to see how it evolves. So, Nicolas, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, and thank you for your time.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.